All right, welcome. I'm just gonna leave another minute for folks to start trickling in. We'll get started pretty soon here, though. All right, I guess we'll get started here. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Actually, it feels weird saying evening with how bright it is. Maybe I'll consider this late afternoon. Regardless, thank you for joining us. My name is Jane Geller, and I'm supporting communications and engagement for this application alongside the project team. Tonight's session is intended to walk through what is being proposed, why the application has been submitted, and how the city reviews applications like this. We'll also leave time at the end to answer any questions. All right, so before we begin, a few housekeeping items. You can ask questions at any time using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen or by using the raise hand feature if you want to ask your question out loud. We ask that questions remain brief so we can hear from as many people as possible. Also wanted to note this session is being recorded and all materials will be shared afterward just for those who couldn't make it tonight, just so they can access everything that they may have missed. Okay, so here's what we'll cover tonight. We'll go through an overview of the site, talk about why a land use amendment is being considered, what the proposed change would allow, key considerations, including traffic and surrounding context, go through the planning process, and then we'll open it up for questions. So with that, I'll pass it off to Jennifer to introduce herself and run through the presentation. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Jane, and hi, everybody. My name is Jennifer Duff. I'm an associate planner with B&A Studios and managing this application on behalf of Brymore Developments, who are the kind of the lead client here for this application and are responsible for advancing the project as well as exploring future opportunities for this site. Jump to the next slide. So just a quick site overview. You might already be aware from some of the materials you've already seen, but this site is on the corner of 64th Avenue and Métis Trail Northeast. It's about 125 meters away from the McKnight West Winds LRT station, which does have a pretty direct connection to transit through that pedestrian overpass. And the site currently consists of a 3-story office building currently occupied by ATB offices. So this site is very well connected to transit as well as major roads in the area. Next slide. So right now the building is occupied, like I mentioned, by the ATB office and their lease is up for renewal, which they won't be renewing in the near future. So the building is going to be sitting vacant. So what we're doing is exploring some additional options for uses that this building could use. So to allow for a broader range of uses than it currently allows for. So right now the land is designated a direct control that's based on an industrial land use, which does allow for office buildings. And what we're proposing is basically a very similar land use, but allowing for the additional use of school to allow for a potential public charter school in the future. And yeah, for now, the existing tenants will remain. And there's the existing land use plan. So yeah, it's an old direct control district from 2003. And what we are proposing is a new direct control district, which is just a special custom set of rules specifically for this site. We saw it as a way to retain the industrial uses, but to allow for that additional use of a school, as we saw that the building could be a good fit for a charter school in the future. And one thing that will be required as part of this application is an amendment to the area structure plan, as it's really focused on industrial uses. So it would allow for the additional use of school similar to the land use. And we aren't proposing any specific building changes at this time. And any sort of like building upgrades or any of that would be looked at an additional stage. So either the development permit or building permit stages. So like I mentioned, this would expand the types of uses that would be allowed within the district. And it could include some institutional, more community-oriented uses. The one potential use that is being explored is that public charter school use. Charter schools are part of the School Act of Alberta, and they need provincial approval for funding, same as any sort of public school. You can jump to the next one. And kind of as I mentioned, the building is in a good condition, so we're looking at a way to reuse the existing building without having to replace it or add on to it. And the building has a lot of features that would support conversion to other uses like a school. They have large open areas and eating areas, as well as boardrooms that could be converted to classrooms, and it could be easily adapted to support a school environment. And same with surrounding infrastructure would also support a school. So we feel this is a good spot for the additional use of school, given it's close to transit, including the McKnight Westwinds LRT station, does provide for good pedestrian connections to adjacent communities. It has good access to major roadways, including Métis Trail and 64th Avenue. We did submit a transportation impact assessment to the city as part of our application to look at some of those other connections on the west side of the site, as well as some of the intersections at 64th and 36th Street. And so that's being reviewed by the city currently, and that will identify, as well as the city will identify, any road or access improvements that would be required at the development permit stage. It's also in a great location due to its proximity to the residential area, and it's located right on the edge of an industrial area, so it's a good fit for an industrial conversion. There is less of a demand for industrial in this area, just given its proximity to residential and some of the other uses in the area. And this location would support that use and serve a broader area. One thing to point out, it is within the airport vicinity protection area, which does restrict certain uses within this area due to noise. So one thing that if they do go forward with a charter school use, they will need to get an exemption from the province for the airport vicinity protection area. And part of that exemption process would be to show that they can address the sound conditions within the building. So it may be they need to do improvements to the glass or the actual building envelope to ensure that that sound wouldn't get inside the building. So a little bit about where this application is in the process. It is under review by the city currently, and technical studies are also being reviewed by city departments. So once we get the feedback from the city, as well as any feedback from the engagement, we'll be looking at either amending our application or going forward with what we're proposing currently, and then resubmitting to the city. And then from there, they will be making a recommendation to Calgary Planning Commission, and then a report is prepared for council. And of course, city council is the one who makes the final decision on the land use public hearing. So there is another opportunity to give feedback directly to council during that time. And you may have seen the large notices on site, so there would be new notices on site posted with the public hearing date once we're closer there. But we are looking probably around sometime in the summer.
All right, thank you, Jen. We'll now move into the question and answer portion of the session. Just as a reminder, you can submit questions using the Q&A feature, or, well, there aren't many of us here tonight, so if you prefer to ask your questions out loud, feel free to use the raise hand feature and we'll call you up to ask your question. I'll just leave like a minute for folks to submit any questions they have.
I think they can also submit questions afterward as well too, right, Jane?
Yes, that's true. I will share my contact info at the end of this. The next slide that'll be shared, and I'll also send an email to all registrants with the feedback form and my email address. They actually got a question that says no question from me. Thank you for that. Yeah, I guess we'll just move forward from there. If anything else comes to mind, yeah, feel free to reach out to me. My email is just listed on the screen there. Thank you again for joining us this late afternoon. A recording of the session will be shared with all those who registered, and a feedback form will also be available following the session. And we welcome your input. I'll send an email right after this to those who attended, just because I don't have the link on hand right now. But if you do have, like I said, any additional questions, please feel free to reach out using the contact information shown here. All right, I'm just going to leave this slide open here, but I hope you all have a great evening and happy almost Friday. Bye, everyone.
Thanks everyone for your time.